and welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome to a video today which sees us say goodbye to the end of an era in Barca's midfield. A legend is departing. We are going to be talking today about the sheer genius of Sergio Busquets, and we're also going to be taking a look as well at a wider scale too. The knock-on effect perhaps of Busquets' departure from Barca and what that may do for Jordi Alba, for instance, and also as well whether Lionel Messi's return to the club is impacted now by these impending decisions. It is all coming up today. It's going to be an emotional one, so come on and let's get to it. Because yesterday we spoke on MORETALKFCB about the decision that was about to come. We knew that it was going to happen, and we knew that when it did, it would really bring the emotions. And now it's official. Sergio Busquets will leave Barca at the end of the season, bringing to an end a 15-year spell with the first team in which he won everything. And I mean everything. This guy conquered football for club and for country. He was part of some of the most successful and majestic teams that we have ever had the privilege of watching. And if there's one thing, though, that you cannot do with Sergio Busquets, it's define his career and define him as a player by numbers, by stats, by metrics. He is more than that. Because for me, he redefined an era in that defensive midfield position. He was never a fast player, but he played at his own pace. He was never particularly strong, but he had strength in the mind. Because that was the way that Busquets set himself apart from every other player in that position. He was not one step ahead. He was not two steps ahead, but he was 3, 4, 5. He saw the game like nobody else. And there was the other side of it too, away from the defensive area of the field, because Busquets, in that role, with his skill set, he became our playmaker from deep in the field. You think of the passes that this man has been able to produce, the angles that he's found, the passing lanes that shouldn't have even existed. He was just different. The way that he operated in that position, he is simply unique. And I often think about the quote there from Vicente Del Bosque on Sergio Busquets when he said, "You watch the game and you don't see Busquets. But if you watch Busquets, you see the whole game." And I think that is a quote that sums up his magic, that sums up a player here who made the complex look simple. Because you knew that at his very best, in his prime there, on a big night, I'm talking here about the biggest of games, if Busquets played well, if he was having a great game, you were going to win. And it didn't matter who you were playing. It was almost as though he took the pressure off the rest of the team and directly applied it all to himself. Because the feeling that I got from Busquets over the years there, when he was at his best and most confident, is that he liked being pressed. He wanted players to come and close him down, to get around him, to swarm around him. Why? Well, because he could get around them. Because he simply had a way every single time of evading a tackle, of getting to a ball first, of twisting, of turning. And you also think, guys, about some of the touches that he used to pull off. A flick here, a drag back, a dummy, a back heel. You may not think of Busquets as your typical skiller, you know, a player here who's got a bag of tricks in his locker, but this man was as skillful as they come. And boy, are we going to miss him? That is the underlying fact of all this. Because I know that over the past few seasons, Busquets hasn't been maybe as consistent as he once was. But the guy is 34 years old. It is understandable. And that's why I've actually got a lot of respect again here for him, that he's called time on his career now. That at the right moment for him, at the stage that he's at, he's saying, you know what? It is the right moment for me to step aside, to move on. And now we can appreciate him. And now we can say, how on earth are we going to replace him? Because there was a reason why Xavi was desperate still to renew Busquets. There was a reason here why the club haven't even wanted to think about his exit. Because you can't replace what he was able to do in this team. He was unique as a player for such a long time, for such a consistent period, in such a special way. And I think it's amazing now, guys, I've got to say, to see the love for this man, for this player, to see the appreciation for a true great in midfield. By far and away, one of the most talented players I have ever seen wear the Barça shirt. Thank you, Busi. We will always appreciate your greatness, and believe me, we will miss you very, very badly. However, guys, in football, the cycle never stops, the work never ends, and as much as it will be near impossible to replace outright there what Busquets brings Barça, we've got to try and move forward if we can this summer. And one important thing to note straight away, though, guys, is about Busquets, that although he was one of the highest earning players in the squad, and of course that in itself will be a saving for the club over the long term there in terms of salary, Busquets' wage there being removed is something that will bring our wage bill down. But get this, Busquets' departure doesn't generate any additional FFP margin for Barca this summer. And let me just explain that, because that for me seems like a strange sort of fact here. We're losing all of those wages, and yet for next season, it's not benefiting us from an FFP point of view, but that's because the salary numbers that La Liga already have for Barca drawn up there ahead of next season, they didn't include Busquets anyway. Because his contract was already coming to an end, we have not renewed him, and therefore La Liga didn't have him in next season anyway. So that is why we haven't gained any extra room that wasn't already allocated to us this summer. But when you start talking about Jordi Alba, well, that's a very different scenario when it comes to FFP, and that is why our attention now diverts there, because like Busquets, Alba is one of the highest earning players at the club, but unlike Busquets, his contract runs out in 2024, meaning there that Alba's big wages are included in next season's fair play. So those are in the plans for next season, meaning that if Barca were able to come to some sort of agreement with Alba this summer, he could have a significant part to play in helping us gain some serious FFP margin. And that is interesting right now, because ever since we've heard about Busquets making this decision to leave, looking to depart Barca this summer, making sure that now is the right time to move aside, we've also just started to hear rumours about Jordi Alba, who up until now has made it very, very clear, I'm not leaving. I'm staying to finish my contract, and that is that. But now, is that starting to change? There is a feeling there that maybe Alba might be open to talking with the club, finding some agreement with the club, and that is what makes what happened this morning all that more interesting. Because at the club's offices this very morning was Jordi Alba's agent, who did meet with the club. And it is reported there that Barca are pushing right now for one of two options when it comes to Alba's future. Number one, he leaves the club this summer. That is one thing the club would be happy to do. In order to achieve that, Barca would look into their reaching an agreement with him about a contract termination, effectively writing off the final year of that deal. Or option number two, Barca would be open to him staying. Barca would accept Alba remaining at the club, but only if he accepted a significant salary reduction to help with FFP. But of course, guys, what you'll all be saying right now is, well, Alba doesn't have to accept either of those options. He does have one more year on his contract. He's got a deal until 2024, so he could, and you're right, he could just see it out. There's not really a lot the club could do about it if Alba doesn't want to lower his wages or if Alba doesn't want to leave. But quite clearly right now, there are real discussions going on behind the scenes. We're desperate to reach some sort of agreement with Alba. He might look at what Busquets is doing. We're also going to talk in a moment about Saudi Arabia, and all of these things are going on right now, and big decisions are about to take place, because then we do move on to the topic of Lionel Messi. Because when we first heard about Messi returning to Barca, it all seemed to be linked to Busquets, didn't it? We heard that actually Busquets renewing was very important to the Messi deal, and actually the same with Jordi Alba in terms of gaining FFP margin. Those two were said to be key in Messi's return, but in the past week, though, when it seems that Busquets now has decided to leave, now we're starting to hear those two are not tied anymore. Messi's future is not tied with Busquets in any way. So Busquets leaving here doesn't mean that Messi's not coming, but at the same time it doesn't mean that he definitely is coming. There is just no correlation there between Busquets' future and Messi's this summer. But what we do know right now, of course, is that Busquets may well be leaving to take up that offer from Saudi Arabia, from Al Hilal, the big offer they presented him with, and we also know they've made one to Jordi Alba, and of course the big goal for Al Hilal is securing Lionel Messi. So all of those three still remain not directly tied, but they all have an offer that's been presented to them. But again, guys, let me just stress, just because Busquets is expected to move to Saudi Arabia doesn't necessarily mean that Messi is going to follow suit, because Busquets, by the way, has been able to spend all of these years with his family at his home in Barcelona, whereas Messi, on the other hand, as we know, as we keep saying, he wants to return home. He hasn't been able to be in the city over the past 2 years at his home with his family, and that is what they all want. So although they are two former teammates, they are two great friends in Messi and Busquets, they do appear right now to be on different paths. I wouldn't say that Busquets here is going to have a big influence on Messi's future, either for or against him returning, but there's big moves happening here. Busquets leaving, talks with Alba, Messi still very much on the agenda, and ahead of next season, there won't be any Sergio Busquets at Barca. Will there be a Jordi Alba? And will there be a Lionel Messi? That is what I want to know from you. Because please, guys, do let me know all of your thoughts in the comments down below, and I want to hear your thoughts, of course, on the man of the moment, Sergio Busquets. In the comments down below, what are your thoughts on him as a player, his career, the way that he played in that position, and what are your best memories of Busi? Let me know that down below. It is a special day. It is an emotional day as we say goodbye to a legend. I will see you soon, guys, across both channels, of course, keeping up with the very latest news. There is a lot happening. Thank you indeed for all your support. But until next time, as always, Visca El Barça.